Shout out to the Professor and Asper's Gaming for supporting me at level 3 or higher on Patreon. Hey everyone, I'm Albert Boris. Alright, so I think I speak for everyone when I say that this single screenshot exceeded everyone's expectations. Yesterday, Nintendo released a trailer showcasing two new retro courses that would be coming to Mario Kart Tour. First off, there was GBA Bowser Castle 4, which was a very pleasant surprise considering in the past, Nintendo only ever gave attention to the other three GBA castles. From the looks of it in the trailers, it seems like Tour's remake of this course is gonna be set in a half blown up castle, with sections taking place both inside of it but also on a wasteland. I guess something went wrong with the bomb. So that's pretty nice, considering the other three GBA Bowser Castle tracks in Mario Kart Tour all use the exact same skybox and aesthetic, despite them all having a distinct one in their original appearances. But the main attraction of the trailer was undoubtedly this, SNES Bowser Castle 3, and oh my goodness, it looks absolutely amazing! Like, where should I even start? It's a bit ironic actually. The GBA remakes in Mario Kart Tour got massive overhauls in terms of gameplay, visuals, and elevation, except for the Bowser Castles, excluding 4. Meanwhile, the SNES course remakes in Mario Kart Tour were all frankly very unremarkable, barely different from their original counterparts, except for Bowser's Castle. In many ways, this feels more like a typical GBA remake rather than a SNES one, as it's almost unrecognizable. When Nintendo first teased it to us with this screenshot, I wasn't even entirely certain myself which variant this was based on. Like, I knew it was a SNES Bowser Castle thanks to the grey tile sets, but beyond that, it looked like an entirely new track. If anything, it reminded me more of Chompworks Galaxy from Super Mario Galaxy 2. Then I connected the dots and realized this was the third one, as this was the section with 3 walls. The difference now being that the walls were now much more elevated and you can even drive on top of them. And that's not even the only thing that changed, since the final turn has now become a cage above lava, the section with jump boosts above lava is tilted upwards, and the entire track has become completely elevated at times. All of this while still keeping the original volcano skybox, and even having sections take place outside of the castle. I'm gonna be honest, this is the first Bowser Castle track that actually feels like Bowser's Castle. Like, sure, you've got 17 other incarnations of this track type, but they're either too realistic or they're simply too overblown. But this? The layout, aesthetic, it all perfectly feels like one of those castle levels you'd find in a real Mario platformer, like Super Mario 3D Land for example. I can't believe how much effort went into this one track, and now the question remains, did all of this go to waste, or will it return to the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass? Well, I think we all know the answer to that question. I mean, it's written all over the screenshot. Or is it? We know there is at least one more SNES course that will be returning to the DLC, and this is thanks to the prefix leak datamine, which had revealed which console prefix every upcoming track was associated with by the time of Wave 1's release. And we know this leak to be reliable, as Wave 2 ended up exactly as anticipated, with Waves 3 and 4 only being slightly different. And the prefix leak pointed to 2 SNES tracks in total making it in. The first one was the second track of Wave 2's Turnip Cup, which ended up becoming SNES Mario Circuit 3. The other one is the third track of Wave 5's Cherry Cup, which is currently unknown. It's become a bit of a heated debate on what it could be. Maybe not as much as the one on what the Wave 4 DS track would be, but it's still pretty noteworthy. There are 17 available tracks to pick from, as 3 of the 20 are already in the game. However, most of them, quite frankly, have an impossible chance of making it in. Because we already have Mario Circuit 3 and Donut Plains 3 in the game, chances are we're not getting additional tracks of those themes for the sake of variety. Likewise, the Ghost Valley tracks are also out because we already have Boo Lake in Wave 3, which is literally the exact same track theme as those, but more developed thanks to the added lake and elevation. So we can quite safely say that those track themes are simply out. However, I would personally cut out Koopa Beach and Choco Island from this debate as well, and this is because if one of them was planned to be the third track of Wave 5's Cherry Cup, they would conflict with courses that have already been datamined to be planned for Wave 5. Koopa Beach would conflict with Koopa Cape, which was found on an alternate version of the Booster Course Pass banner found within the game's files. They're both water-based courses, both even having Koopa in their name, so it would have made for a very repetitive wave. Choco Island, on the other hand, would conflict with Sunset Wilds, which was also found numerous times on this banner. Both are flat courses, set in a desert-ish location, with even a somewhat similar color scheme. They're not so similar I can't tell them apart, but in the same wave, yeah, it'd get very repetitive. So that leaves us with Vanilla Lake and Bowser's Castle. Vanilla Lake, contrary to the other SNES courses, has managed to escape irrelevancy for quite a while now, to the point that some people think it could end up in the Booster Course Pass. On one hand, Vanilla Lake wouldn't conflict with any other track currently datamined for Wave 5. Sure, it would clash with Snowland in Wave 2, since both are overworld snowy tracks with sprinkles of ice. However, we have both Calamari Desert in Wave 2 and Sunset Wilds datamined for Wave 5, and both are set in red Arizona style deserts, so you could make the argument that as long as Vanilla Lake and Snowland are in different waves, it doesn't matter too much, especially since their atmospheres are also a bit different, with Snowland having a more cheerful soundtrack, while Vanilla Lake's is more uncertain. And speaking of Vanilla Lake's more uncertain atmosphere, that alone makes it a slightly more likely candidate than the other 5 track types I mentioned. Usually, the third track in the cup tends to be a bit more ambitious or dangerous than the first and second ones. Koopa Beach and Choco Island, however, are both very easygoing with not many things to worry about and relatively mundane soundtracks. Vanilla Lake is a bit more dangerous though, with more places to fall off and a slightly more mysterious soundtrack. And as already mentioned, the datamined SNES track was put as the third track of the Cherry Cup. And sure, it may be put in a different spot in the final release, but the fact that it was originally put here means that they probably planned for a less inviting track like Vanilla Lake. Or Bowser's Castle, which we'll get to soon. The main reason this track is speculated to be in Wave 5, however, would be the Coconut Mall advertisements. On this track, released all the way back during Wave 1, there were posters set up on a few billboards referencing this track by name. Same with Dino Dino Jungle. And Mario Kart 8 is known for teasing other courses in the game within its courses. Now yes, you could argue that this simply doesn't mean anything at all, because when you compare this version of Coconut Mall with Mario Kart Tour's version, it becomes quite obvious that they literally just ported the entire model over for the Booster Course Pass, with no changes at all. In fact, that was the case for pretty much all tracks in Wave 1. Nintendo didn't really bother to do any visual changes, which would explain why the Vanilla Lake advertisements haven't been removed. But that brings us to another question. Why were they too lazy to change the ads for Coconut Mall, but they were bothered enough to change Sky Garden's entire road texture from Tour? Like, I don't mean they just changed the color from grey to red, even the pattern is different. There's not really an answer to this question. Maybe Vanilla Lake is coming. Or maybe they just did this one change for Sky Garden because they didn't think Tour's road would look good at all in Deluxe. In any case, it doesn't matter because this track exists now. Now that SNES Bowser Castle 3 has been announced for Mario Kart Tour and we saw just how much effort was put into it, you can't really argue against this track. For every setback a Vanilla Lake prediction has, a Bowser Castle prediction has none. Thematic overlapping, we already have a lot of snow themed tracks, but we don't have a single retro Bowser Castle track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, not even in the base game. Effort? Bowser's Castle blows Vanilla Lake out of the water. You don't just randomly remake one SNES track, have it be the only one to get a massive glow up, and then simply bring back a loop over it for the DLC. The only way you could possibly justify Vanilla Lake being in the game over Bowser's Castle is if maybe the map would slowly melt over time from Vanilla Lake 1 to 2 during the race. But not only would that be pretty hard to implement, but why would they bring back a track over something they could maybe do over something they've already done? And remember what I said about the third track in the cup usually being a bit ambitious and perhaps not too welcoming? Well, Bowser's Castle tackles that even better than Vanilla Lake. Really, after this announcement, the question isn't so much on what the final SNES track is, because it's written all over this screenshot. I can't believe I predicted Vanilla Lake in my Wave 5 to 6 video. I really need to update that. The real question should be, where in the Booster Course Pass will this track end up? The prefix leak put this track as the third one of the Cherry Cup, but knowing what Nintendo did to Waves 3 and 4, it's bound that they'll probably be swapping around a few track spots. Or should I say, we know they will, because Maple Treeway, which was originally datamined to be the second track of the Acorn Cup, was pushed forward to Wave 3, which pushed back Waluigi Stadium, originally datamined for it, to Wave 4, which is pushed back the GCN track originally meant for it. So, track placements will be jumbled up now, to accommodate this change. In other words, SNES Bowser Castle 3 might not end up being the third track of the Cherry Cup after all, and I'm not even so sure about it being in Wave 5 at all anymore. It's become so ambitious to the point that I think it might be a bit too much for it. Yeah, it is a SNES track, but it's unlike anything else. One retro track is gonna have to be pushed back to Wave 6 to accommodate Maple Treeway coming way earlier than anticipated, and what other track would be better suited for it than this one? I don't think it would be a Wii or GameCube track, since not only do we already have 2 of them data mined for Wave 6's Spinny Cup, Wave 6 was also data mined to only have 3 retro courses in total, compared to the usual 4 or 5. For that reason, I think they're gonna want to make each retro track be from a different game, for variety's sake. In fact, that might even be why Maple Trio was pushed back to begin with. So the retro track to be delayed stands between SNES Bowser Castle 3 and GBA Sunset Wilds, and between the two, Bowser Castle 3 is simply the more difficult and wild track. So, I predict that this track will be the third course of the Acorn Cup. It's a bit too simple for the Spinny Cup, the very last cup in game, but it's also a bit too chaotic for being a second track, as well as not being ambitious enough for an ending course. And with the openings obviously being reserved for city tracks, this was all that's left. In addition to Bowser Castle courses usually being the third track in a cup for past Mario Kart games as well. Wait, didn't I already put Piranha Plant Cove in this spot? I really need to update my Wave 5 predictions because this video is aging worse for every new track announced for Mario Kart Tour. But with all that being said, that was my video on what the final SNES course will be in the Boost Course Pass, as well as what placement it would end up taking. But what do you think the SNES course will be and where? If you like this video, then make sure to like, share and subscribe to my channel as I talk about everything Mario related. With all that being said, I'm signing off. Until next time.